Welcome to the Anchor Church podcast. Each week, we bring you the teaching from our central campus. We hope it's an encouragement to you. Thanks for listening.
So good to be with you here this morning. I am indeed Susan. I don't know about you this week, but I have come to discover years ago that things don't always go according to plan. Would you agree? I would agree. Years ago, I had the opportunity to be part of a cohort of pastors that gathered together quarterly for 3 or 4 days to deepen our spiritual walks, to be refreshed and renewed. It was at this beautiful place called Mount Angel Abbey in the middle of Oregon. And these people were from all over the country, so it was really cool to get to know them, and they became really dear friends of mine. And so, of course, at the end of one of our later retreats, when the request came, hey, can you give us rides to the airport because our flights are going to all over the place, I was happy to do that. It was fun to drive that hour. In fact, it was on my way home. So I planned well. It would be during the middle of Portland rush hour traffic. And I have driven through Portland before, and so I calculated those things, and I got on the thing, to see what the estimated travel time would be. And I had it all worked out, right? Until right in front of me, in downtown Portland, in that place where the highway, for whatever reason, narrows to 2 lanes, was an object that just came into my view in a split second. And I saw that, I was all subconscious. I saw the thing. It was sort of bouncing, tumbleweeding along. It was black. It was I'm not sure. And my choice was either to swerve into the lane next to me and cause a wreck or to hit the thing. And so it looked like it might be trash or a bag or, something. And so I was I'm going to hit the thing. And I hit the thing, and the steering wheel almost came out of my hands. And there was the loudest ka-funk. And my tire immediately went flat because in my rearview mirror, I could see that thing was a bowling ball. A bowling ball in the middle of downtown Portland, rolling along on I-5. And so here we were. I got friends that got to go to the airport, so I immediately exit. I pull into the 7-Eleven. We get Ubers. We get everyone to the airport. They all made their flights. I get out the instructions on how to change my tire because it doesn't happen all that often. And I call all over Portland trying to find, what is the thing that I was trying to find? It was a 235, 55, 19. Because I didn't want all 4 of them. I just wanted one because the rest of them were fine. Nobody had a 235, 55, 19. So I finally found a place that had a 235, 55, 19. The interesting thing was all these places I called, they were wow, weird. That's the 3rd time this week I've heard about somebody hitting a bowling ball and getting it flat. Things don't always work as you plan. So I show up into this tire store where they've got my tire and I'm ready to get it installed. I'm super happy because I want to go home. And the guy says the best line of the whole day. He says, well, if you're going to get hit by a bowling ball and get a flat, at least it's a good thing you had a spare. Got to have humor in those situations, right? Oh, sorry, bad mom joke. Things don't always go according to plan. If you're me, sometimes that's super fun because it's a surprise and things may unfold in a way that's even more fun than you had imagined. The surprise lottery ticket or the inheritance or the job that you didn't expect to get but you applied for on a pipe dream. Those kinds of things are fun, but we can also understand how uncertainty works against us. Because the truth is that things don't go according to plan, and that uncertainty is a certainty in life. Uncertainty is certain. We don't know this, but it was indeed Benjamin Franklin who coined that phrase of there's only 2 things that are certain in life, and it's death and taxes, because he's hey, the Constitution looks really good. It looks all buttoned up, but things are uncertain. Uncertainty is certain. Uncertainty can be a windfall. It certainly can work out in our favor, but it can also threaten our security, our hopes, our dreams. Most of us know or are 1 degree away from someone who does know, someone whose life has been abruptly sideswiped by an unwelcome diagnosis, or someone who has lost their job unexpectedly, or someone whose startup was like they poured everything into this thing and it's failed. Someone whose relationship has gone from healthy to hopeless and everyone is shocked, including them most of all. Maybe it's one of those places that you find yourself in this morning. Where has life been uncertain for you? Those things that we take for granted fall apart. Someone didn't obey basic traffic rules and now my car is totaled, or worse, right? The one you love can't seem to remember things like they used to, sometimes even who you are. You got laid off from a job that seemed to be going really well. When the things that you hoped to avoid start to happen, like that hill that you go on your morning walk, it's harder and harder to get up every morning. Or your hair is getting thinner, or your middle is getting thicker. I eat a cookie and gain 5 pounds. Can you relate? Where the hope that we seem for is less and less likely to become a reality. That lifelong relationship that we long for. Staying sober for more than a couple days. A child that we would love to cradle in our arms. It can be very difficult. Even simply waking up in the morning with a sense of hope. Life uncertainties happen for all of us. And in those times, we usually feel so powerless to do anything about them. There's nothing we can plan for. There's no way we can control those. We can't prevent them. Where our norms are dismantled, our hopes are disappointed, and the solutions we're left with don't even come close to being what we'd wanted. So we end up being warriors who crush those that we hold responsible, or worriers who crumble under the stress. Or maybe we find ourselves somewhere in between in that awkward middle, and it's just so dissatisfying. This morning, we're going to be looking at a group of people for whom uncertainty was of a magnitude that it steals the biblical spotlight in the whole arc of Scripture. We're going to be looking at a time where God's people, everything they banked on, everything they believed on, everything that they built their lives on would unravel. They would find themselves questioning God's promises that had been spoken over them for hundreds of years. They'd be robbed of their future hope. We're going to see that in this time, God meets them in powerful ways. And we're going to see that in our times, he does the same for us. The chapter and verse we're going to be in today is in Isaiah. Isaiah, everyone knows where Isaiah is, don't they? It's on the screen is where it is. It's actually kind of toward the middle. We're going to be in chapter 40. We're going to be dwelling in 5 verses there, verses 1 through 5. And so if you'll join me reading along as I read out loud. Comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her hard service has been completed, that her sin has been paid for, that she's received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. A voice of one calling, in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be raised up, every mountain and hill made low, the rough ground become level and the rugged places a plain. And the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all people will see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Isaiah was a prophet. A prophet is somebody who's called and anointed and appointed by God to be his mouthpiece to the people. And he lived in and around Jerusalem and Judah, parts of Israel, about 700 years before the time that Jesus would be born. And his job that God had assigned him to was to warn the people of a coming judgment. Okay, take a breath. They had worshiped other gods, just any god that they wanted. And sometimes that even meant sacrificing their own children to them. It was ugly. They had taken advantage of the poor and the widows and the foreigners, those marginalized people, and not cared about their needs. And this grieved God's heart. They had gone for centuries being stubborn and rebellious. ignoring those things that God had told them to do. And it's not that God is a meano and that he is trying to keep them from, having any freedom or any fun. Not at all. What he wants is a people to call his own who can represent him to the rest of the world. And so what that means is representing his love and his mercy and his justice. And so as they're saying, like, oh, over here, I'm going to go my way, he's saying, no, I need you to go this way because I need you to partner with me in this thing. Our passage in Isaiah comes right on the heels of Isaiah telling the Jerusalem and Judah people that there's exile coming. They're going to be ripped out of their families. They're going to be ripped away from everything that they know and love. And they're going to be hauled off into a foreign land with a foreign language where nothing is the same for them. And it's going to be for decades that they're there. And so he's warned them of this thing where they're going to be brutally taken. They're going to be captive. They're going to be away from memories that they've had. Hey, remember where we got married? Oh, I long to just see that place again. Remember where our daughter took her first steps? Oh, gosh, if I only had a taste of home. Solomon's temple, the place where they had worshiped for centuries, would be utterly destroyed. They grieved this thing. The author of another biblical book called Lamentations, lamenting, would say this about the exile. He would say that this was a place that once was full of people, and now it's deserted. This was a place that had life, and now it's abandoned, like a widow. All the people would groan as they looked for food to sustain their lives. Infants and children would starve to death. There would be just tears overflowing because hope was lost. And the writer of Lamentations would cry out, "Why do you always forget us? Why do you forsake us for so long?" It feels like that sometimes, doesn't it? He would say, "No one is near to comfort me. No one is near to comfort me." It's in this moment of grief that we see God using Isaiah to speak a profound and timely message to his people. It is not by accident that as we turn the page from chapter 39 to chapter 40, 39 and forward is all about judgment, and Assyria is going to come and Babylon's going to come, and you guys need to get your act together, and there's hope woven all the way through. It's beautiful, even from page 1. But now we're turning to chapter 40, and the whole rest of the book is going to point to the restoration, to the deliverance, to the kindness that God has and has always had in store for his people. So it's a timely message because here's what he wants Isaiah to communicate. I see the people in their pain. I know their distress. It's personal to me. I'm an intimately personal God. I'm an intimately personal God. We look at verses 1 and 2. We see the first word that God wants his people to hear is comfort. It might be like, comfort, strengthen me. I need you. He says it not once, but twice. In the Hebrew, that means emotional intensity. It means I mean it, I mean it, I mean it. I'm saying it twice. He also says your God, and that verb tense there is keeps saying your God. Comfort, comfort. Comfort, be comforted. I want you to be comforted. He speaks tenderly to Jerusalem. That language means he speaks to the heart. It's not an informative thing. It is that. It's not a public service announcement. He's wooing them. He's wooing them. That her hard service has been completed. It's over. It's over. Oh. I know it was hard and it's over. He's tender, intimately personal. Some of you know I had a career as a pediatrician for some time, and it was common for me to see kids that were injured. So they'd come in with broken arms or lacerations, cuts, things like that we could help with. And I had tricks to help people get through that, but it was so interesting to me to watch how parents navigated that, because I could learn some things from parents and how they navigated helping their child through pain. Sometimes it was a threat, like you better hold still or the doctor's going to give you a shot. And I'd be like, oh no, that's not what we want to communicate. Or it could be, you better hold still, or if you do hold still, we'll go to Dairy Queen afterwards, and that was a little more successful. But I remember one dad with his 4-year-old son who came in. His 4-year-old son had a pretty bad gash on his leg. It would need stitches. And I just watched how this dad's presence calmed and comforted his son. You could see this 4-year-old boy. 4-year-olds is hard because they're able to fight you and they know what's going on. So there's fear and there are tears welling up in this little one's eyes, and dad is gently carrying him in to the room and setting him down on the exam bed. And he's just near and he's present. And he comforts him just by standing near and looking him in the eyes, putting his hand on his back. And this, he had to get painful things, so I start to numb up the area and start to wash it out, and that can be scary and painful. And anytime you see BLOOD, that's always scary. And dad says things like, yeah, buddy, it hurts. He doesn't hide the truth, but his presence is comforting. He says, I'm right here with you. You're holding so still, I'm proud of you. So every few minutes, the boy would get fearful again. He'd look up at his dad, and his heart rate would lower. His dad was with him. His dad knew just what to say. His dad knew just what this boy needed. His dad could look him in the eyes and give him the words that would give him peace in that moment. The crazy thing is that, like, the boy is the one who's hurting, and he's the one who's powering through, but the strength is coming from the Father. Intimately personal. Intimately personal. That's the kind of God that we have. He comforts us in our pain. He's there with us when we're hurting. But oftentimes, if you're like me, we're uncomfortable with being comforted, aren't we? For some, it's a lack of trust. And understandably, because the people that you were drawn to trust have not been trustworthy. It's been chaotic. It's been inconsistent. There have been lies and there's been betrayal. And so we take that sentiment and we overlay it with our understanding of God, and we say that he's chaotic and unpredictable. And we have a hard time trusting him because maybe he's volatile and malicious. That he doesn't care, he doesn't see us. As we have despair and the stress that we feel when our income is hit once again with hardship, or when we're so lonely, even when we're surrounded with a room of people, or when our addictive habits are robbing us of a job or family or friends, in our pain that just won't go away, when our health is failing. But God doesn't work in a chaotic, malicious way. In fact, in this story in Isaiah, he has told them from the very beginning what was to happen. He's made promises with them uniquely as a people group. And he said, hey, I want you to go along with me. I'm going to create a world. I'm going to make a world that's full of justice and love and mercy. Will you partner with me? And he said, if you do choose to partner with me, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make it easier for you. If you choose not to partner with me, it's going to be hard. And it's not going to be hard because I'm malicious. It's going to be hard because I want your partnership. I want to be with you. I want you to reflect the justice and the mercy and the love that I feel for this planet and the people that I've created. He's a loving Father. He wants to be with them forever and bring shalom, that completeness, that hope that everything is right reality to this world, to his people. Sometimes we're uncomfortable with being comforted because of our shame. We deserve pain. We're so used to it. We swim in it all the time. We tell ourselves narratives that are untrue, not knowing, not recognizing that God is stooping down. He's bending low. He's looking us in the eye, just like this father with his 4-year-old son, and he's saying, I'm with you. And the cost has been paid. I love the language in the verse that we read that says that Jerusalem has received double, from the Lord's hand, double for all her sins. It's confusing, but what it means is there's a fabric of life, and there's cost, and there's payment, and those two things, by God's hand, fold in half and perfectly match each other. The cost has been perfectly paid. We might be uncomfortable with being comforted because we've developed a victim mindset. And if we are comforted, it means we have to forgive. And sometimes, frankly, it's just easier or more fun or more gratifying to hold on to anger. What would it look like for our hearts to soften? For us to lay down our armor and our sword and allow him to heal us and bring comfort? The truth is that being comforted by God, experiencing his peace, his presence, no matter what circumstances surround us, means that we have to be vulnerable. We have to resist the urge to pose as invincible, because you and I both know that we are not invincible. I would imagine that most of us have case studies in that, even from just this morning. I do. Being invincible or being vulnerable it means that we open ourselves up to him, that we admit that it hurts, that we acknowledge that we need help, that we dare to trust him again. Ouch. Or maybe for the first time. Or maybe with more of yourself. We ask not only, can you help me and will you help me, but I want you to help me. Will you please help me? Elizabeth Oldfield is one of my favorite authors these days. She's a little edgy, and she writes about some really good things, and I love this quote from her about vulnerability. She says, to express a desire is always vulnerable. To let yourself yearn for something you do not have and then go after it, risking disappointment, requires courage. Saying what we really want, especially relationally, without shame or apology, is so bad, asterisk. Forgive me. Brian said it was okay. So Isaiah is not just preparing the people for exile. He is preparing the hearts of the people to trust again, to love again, to be comforted. He's reminding them that God is not a capricious God who's just random with wrath, that he's full of justice and mercy and love. He wants to be with us, that he's personal, intimately personal. The second thing that Isaiah wants us to know that God's put on his heart for his people is that God is not only intimately personal, but he is infinitely powerful. Infinitely powerful. It's odd because those two things most often don't go together, do they? We've got Winnie the Pooh, who's soft and cuddly and not, pretty simple-minded. And then we've got like Batman and Bruce Wayne, who are distant and aloof and strong. Or, I was going to say something about athletes, but no, that's not true. I won't say that. But here we see a God who's both intimately personal and infinitely powerful. What a beautiful combination those two things are. We look at verses 3 and 4, and we see that he is preparing a way. That there is a highway that's being built. That the valleys are going to be raised up and the mountains are going to be made low and the ground is going to become level and the whole place is going to be smooth going. He's telling the people that there's work being done by a powerful God. There's work being done, and it's something new being built where there's been desolation, where there's been barrenness. He is at work. The picture here is of a royal procession. This is how it would be. Hey, king is coming. Got to make a way. And the king is coming, and he wants to make a way. He's bringing refreshment in the dry desert, laying a foundation for a superhighway that, unlike I-5, is going to be completed. One of my favorite places to visit when I want to see nature is Zion National Park. Maybe you've been there. It lives up to its name. It means holy place or kingdom of heaven. It's this stunning Red Rock Canyon. You can see pictures of part of it in the background there. Red Rock Canyons that go towering 2,000 feet above river valleys below that are just lush and beautiful. And it's a wonderful place to be. I've got to go there twice, 2 times, both with one child who was in an in-between stage. So 2 different kids, 2 different trips, really awesome time. And both times we've gone, we've had the win of getting a lottery ticket to be able to hike the hike called the Subway. And the Subway, we're lucky to get that because the Subway is a hike they describe as hard. I am 30 plus years older than my children and not in as good a shape as they are. Also, it's June and it's 80 to 90 degrees outside. And so it's hot, and it's a 9-mile hike that goes plummeting down into this canyon on poorly marked scramble trails into an overgrown riverbed where you clamber over rocks that are your size, and you get scarred up, as I am here on my arm, for a very long time. And so lucky, but also it's so beautiful. So you get to the midpoint of the hike, the namesake called Subway, and just it opens up and it's refreshing, and you have this cascading wide waterfall, and you sit and you have lunch. You can see in the background of the picture here, that round tube is this massive thing that a Subway could fit through. It's been carved over years in this slot canyon by the water. Gorgeous. Rest, breathe. Oh my goodness, and then hike back. I can tell you, I never wished more that the valleys could be raised up than then, and that the mountains could be made low than then, and that the boulders, the rough places, would be made smooth because I was tired. And so we go back and we're struggling over these things, and we get to the foot of the riverbed where we're climbing up out of this thing. It's 80, 90 degrees, and I'm hot, and there's no shade. It's on the sunny side of the deal. And I'm struggling, and my son, who's with me, is trying to encourage me. And so he's in good shape. He's 21, blah, blah, blah. I'm struggling. He's a few feet ahead of me, and he decides to encourage me in his most kind drill sergeant voice, saying, "It ain't going to climb itself." And so I'm like, do I correct his grammar? Or, and so it became this joke between us. I'd take a few steps, I'd sit down to rest, and he'd say, "It ain't going to climb itself." So it's actually become a mantra in our family that when things get difficult, it ain't going to climb itself. And I think about my spiritual walk. And sometimes the way that I tell myself, it ain't going to climb itself. I've got to keep going. It ain't going to climb itself. I got to overcome this boulder or this mountain. I got to get myself up out of this trench that I've been in for so long. I tell myself it's supposed to be hard. Of course it's hard. And I slip back down the canyon wall and I say, what is wrong with me? We question our worth. We feel weak. What we want to feel is invincible, right? We want to feel strong, empowered. We want to feel independent because that feels good. But the reality is that our spiritual journey, if we're to be transformed into one who is more loving, one who's more connected, one who's more authentic to the way that we are designed by our Creator to be, it means being vulnerable. To see a highway that's being built for a coming king who can bring comfort to us and say yes to that. To say yes to being rescued from the dryness and barrenness of doing it on our own. To partner with a king who is greater than I am, greater than you are, to represent and reflect his justice and mercy to all people. And the remarkable thing about this highway being built is it's not being built with heavy machinery. It's not being built with bulldozers and graders and excavators and all those things. No volcanoes, no dynamite, no natural disasters are doing this highway work. This is the infinite power of an intimately personal God who is intentionally and deliberately pulling out all the stops to make a way between himself and you and me. he wants to be with you and me. And he's moving mountains and he's raising valleys and he's making the rough places plain so that he can bring refreshment and restoration to you in the mountains of our failures, our doubts, our brokenness, those things we shouldn't have done, but we did, those things that we should have done, but we never did, the valleys of our fear, our hidden shame, our darkest nights, our waiting, our longings. Isaiah reminds us of the beautiful truth that God is intimately personal, he's infinitely powerful, and that he is relentlessly pursuing you and me. In the 3rd and 4th verses of Isaiah 40, we see that the highway that's being made is for our God. It's not for us to put on our boots and strap on our backpacks and try to climb our way out of a canyon on a poorly marked trail. The highway is for us. The way is being made for our God. Because the truth is, we would never be able to make that journey if it counted on us. But he is able. He is able. All we need is to receive and go with him. To lay down our invincibility, to trust in his goodness, to allow him to comfort us as he makes his way to you because he loves you. The comfort that God brings is not just inward and spiritual. It's historical and it's tangible. Hundreds of years after this time of Isaiah, there would be a baby who would be conceived by a priestly couple that was barren. And his name would be John the Baptist. And he would be one about whom it's written, he's a voice crying in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord. In the desert, make a straight highway for our God. Because John the Baptist was sent as a mouthpiece for God to point the way to another baby who would be born. Miraculously conceived, laid in a manger, God with us, Jesus Christ. Jesus would be a tender shepherd. He would strengthen those who were weak. He would make himself vulnerable to the point of death on our behalf, and he would rise in power again. And one day he will come again in glory. Isaiah tells us that every eye is going to see this happen. It's going to be the best glory, everything good and beautiful that you can imagine. Some of you know the story of John Newton. He was an English clergyman. He was a hymn writer. He wrote Amazing Grace. He was a former slave trader who experienced redemption and transformation. But not a lot of people know about his older years, when his body was frail, his eyesight was poor, and he had a beloved daughter by the name of Betsy. And Betsy was struggling with mental illness. She had anxiety out of control. She was having thoughts that couldn't be trusted. And so he pulled out all the stops to help her find a place where she could be healed, where she could receive care. It was a place called Bethlehem Hospital, Bedlam, you might have heard of. One of the most famous psychiatric hospitals in all the world. But the trick was, in her year of hospitalization, she wasn't allowed to be visited. And it broke his heart. He couldn't bear it. And so every morning at a certain time, he would walk to the place where he could see the window where she lived. And he would wave frantically. He would say, Betsy, Betsy. And his eyesight was poor, so he'd have to ask somebody next to him, a servant or a friend, like, do you see her? If you see her and she's waving, she'll have a white hanky and she'll let me know that she's there, because that was their system. Maybe he could see a white hanky. He couldn't. So on those days when she would wave back with that white hanky, he would go home and he'd be satisfied. Beautiful. Our God is not satisfied to wave a white hanky so that we'll know he's with us, to be at a distance. John Newton could go a certain distance to let his niece, Betsy, know that he was there. Our God can go farther. He can lower mountains. He can raise valleys. He can remove the boulders in your life. And he does that in the person of Jesus Christ. So that fear is not your future In the words of one artist, sickness is not your story. Heartache is not your home. Death is not the end, but resurrection and life and hope. And all people will witness the glory of our Lord coming in strength and tenderness. We're going to move into a time of communion where we celebrate that Jesus came in the flesh, that he came to be with you and me, God with us. We're going to have prayer stations here on each side of the auditorium. Maybe the Holy Spirit is whispering to you. Maybe there's something on your heart that you'd like someone to pray with you for, or maybe you've never received prayer before. It's not scary. Go. That's there for you. Merry Christmas. God with us. A way is being made in the wilderness to comfort, and his name is Jesus.